Hello, my dear. Come, sit here with me for a moment. Help yourself to some tea if you'd like. My name? Well, most people just call me Miss Pearl. I'm just a simple housemaid. I've been cleaning other people's homes for 40 years. 40 years folding other people's clothes, scrubbing other people's floors, and, well, watching other people's lives unfold right in front of me. You know, when you're a maid in these big fancy houses, something funny happens. You become invisible, like a piece of furniture. They talk around you, argue around you, cry around you, as if you're not even there. They forget that these hands that clean their bathrooms, these ears also hear their secrets. People think I'm just a naive old woman with my white hair and my worn-out shoes. They think I don't understand their complicated lives. But my dear, I understand far more than they could ever imagine. I just choose to stay quiet. Most of the time. But today I need to tell you about the Anderson family. Because what I witnessed in that house changed something in me. Made me realize that sometimes staying silent is not the same as staying innocent. So let me tell you what really happened on Maple Ridge Street, number 47. Let me tell you about Mrs. Victoria Anderson, her husband Jonathan, and the day I saw their perfect life crumble like dry leaves. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. I started working for the Andersons 6 years ago, March 15th, 2018. I remember because it was the day after my daughter's birthday, and I was grateful for the job. My previous employer had passed away. May God rest her soul. The Anderson house. Lord have mercy. It looked like something out of a magazine. You know those houses you see on TV? With the white columns and the perfectly trimmed garden? That was it. 8 bedrooms, marble floors so shiny you could see your own reflection. Mr. Jonathan Anderson was a hedge fund manager. I don't fully understand what that means, but I know it means money. A lot of money. He wore suits that probably cost more than my car. Always on the phone, always stressed, but always polite to me. Good morning, Miss Pearl. Thank you for everything you do, Miss Pearl. We don't know what we'd do without you, Miss Pearl. Pretty words, you know? The kind that make you feel seen, even when you really aren't. Mrs. Victoria Anderson. Now she was a different story. 38 years old, looked like 25. Blonde hair always perfect, not a single strand out of place. Yoga at 6 a.m., juice cleanses, everything designer. She ran a lifestyle blog, Living the Anderson Way, all about being the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect everything. They had 2 kids, Madison, 12 years old, and Christopher, 9. Beautiful children, quiet children. Too quiet, if you ask me. The kind of quiet that comes from knowing they also have to be perfect. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I arrived at 8 a.m. Mrs. Anderson had already returned from yoga, drinking her green juice, planning her day. And every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoon at 2 p.m. She told me the exact same thing. Miss Pearl, I'm heading to book club. I'll be back at 5:30. If Mr. Anderson calls, just say I went out with the girls. Book club. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. For 6 years, I heard about this book club. Funny thing is, in 6 years, I never once saw her carry a single book. Look, I'm not a naturally suspicious person. I mind my own business, do my job, and go home. But when you clean someone's house 3 times a week for 6 years, you notice things. Small things at first, like how Mrs. Anderson would shower and change before going to her book club. Not just change. I mean shower, perfume, the expensive lingerie she kept hidden in the back of her drawer. The black lace set that still had the tags on it. La Perla tags. I checked once. 2,000 Rs for a pair of panties. Panties her husband had never seen her wear. I'd find her gym clothes in the laundry basket, but they never smelled like sweat. They smelled like expensive perfume. Men's perfume. Not Mr. Anderson's. I knew his scent. I washed his clothes every week. This one was different. Stronger. more intentional. Her phone. Oh, her phone. She always kept it face down. Always. And she had two phones, the regular one everyone knew about, and another. A small silver iPhone she kept in her gym bag. I found it once while cleaning her car, buried under yoga mats and protein bar wrappers. I didn't go through it. I'm not that kind of person, but I saw it light up once. Just once. A message preview. I can't wait to see you on Wednesday. Same place. No name, just a heart emoji. And then there were the credit card statements. Look, I wasn't snooping. God knows I'm not a snoop. But Mr. Anderson had asked me to organize his office on a Tuesday, and there they were, spread out across his desk. He had been looking at them, I could tell. Some charges were marked with yellow highlighter. Hotel charges, fancy hotels. In the middle of the afternoon, hotels right here in town, not even 30 minutes away. And beside those statements, there was a business card, crumpled, like he had squeezed it in his fist. Davidson and Associates, Private Investigation Services. That's when I knew. Mr. Anderson knew something was wrong. He just didn't know how wrong. But I knew. Because every Wednesday at 1:45 p.m., I watched from the kitchen window as Mrs. Anderson got into her white Mercedes. I watched her check her lipstick in the mirror. I watched her smile. That secret smile people have when they're about to do something they shouldn't. And I thought about Mr. Anderson, sitting in his downtown office, working 12-hour days to keep that perfect life running. I thought about Madison and Christopher, perfect and quiet, raised by nannies and tutors while their mother was at book club. And I prayed. I was wrong. That maybe she really did love books that much. That maybe I was just an old woman who had seen too many families fall apart. But then came September 14th, 2024, the day everything changed. It was a Wednesday, a beautiful September day, the kind where the leaves are just starting to turn gold and the air smells like autumn. I arrived at 8 a.m. as always, used my key, came in through the side door. The house was quiet. Mr. Anderson had already left for work at 6:30, and the kids had been taken to school at 7:45. Mrs. Anderson was in the kitchen, drinking her green juice, scrolling on her phone. She looked up when I walked in. Good morning, Miss Pearl. Good morning, Mrs. Anderson. Same routine? Same dance we'd done 1,000 times? I started my work. Kitchen first, then the bedrooms, then the bathrooms. Mrs. Anderson disappeared upstairs around 10. I heard the shower turn on. Then the hairdryer. Then her footsteps going back and forth in the bedroom. The sound of someone getting ready for something important. At 1:30 p.m. she came down. And honey, she looked stunning. Not yoga mom stunning, not lifestyle influencer pretty. She looked like a woman going to meet a lover. Red dress, the expensive one from her closet, the one that still had the tags 6 months ago. High heels, real jewelry, not the fake pieces she wore to yoga. Hair down, soft, not in the usual ponytail. Miss Pearl, I'm going to book club. I'll be back at 5:30. But this time something in her voice was different. Excited, like a teenager sneaking out, like someone who thought she was getting away with something. Yes, ma'am, I said without lifting my eyes from the counter I was wiping. She grabbed her keys, the small purse, not the big one she normally carried, but a tiny clutch. The kind you take when you don't plan to stay long, or when you plan for someone else to pay the bill. The door closed behind her. I heard her car start. I heard the gravel crunching as she pulled out of the driveway. And then I heard another sound. A car door, opening and closing, in the garage. I froze. My heart started pounding. Someone else was here. Someone else was in the house. I grabbed the broom, the only thing near me that could be used as a weapon, and I walked slowly toward the door to the garage. The door opened, and there he was, Mr. Jonathan Anderson. He looked at me. I looked at him. For a moment, neither of us said a word. His face. My God, his face. I've seen pain before, but this was different. This was the face of a man who already knew the answer to a question he didn't want to ask. "Miss Pearl," he said quietly, "did my wife just leave?" I didn't know what to say, so I told the truth. "Yes, sir, just a moment ago." "Did she say where she was going?" Well, in that moment, I had only one choice. I could lie. I could protect her secret like I had protected it for 6 years. I could say book club like I always said. Or I could tell the truth. "She said book club, sir." He nodded slowly. But his eyes told me he knew I was lying. Or rather, repeating a lie. "Miss Pearl," he said, and his voice cracked just a little. "I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Please." I nodded. "Has my wife been going to book club? Actually going to book club?" 40 years keeping secrets. 40 years biting my tongue. 40 years being invisible, staying quiet, minding my business. But in that moment, looking at that man, this good man who worked himself to death to support his family, who said, "Thank you," and "please" to the maid, who kissed his kids goodnight even when he came home exhausted at 10 p.m. I couldn't lie anymore. "No, sir," I said softly. "I don't believe she has." The silence that followed felt like it lasted an hour. He nodded again, just once. Then he asked, "How long have you known?" "Too long, sir." He walked to the kitchen counter and sat heavily on one of the stools. Put his head in his hands. For a moment, I thought he was going to cry. But he didn't. He just sat there. Finally, he spoke. "Where does she actually go, Miss Pearl?" "I don't know exactly, sir, but there's a hotel, the Riverside Inn. The charges on her credit card." He looked up suddenly. "You saw the statements?" "You left them on your desk, sir, when you asked me to organize your office last month. I wasn't snooping, I didn't want to see them, but they were there and—" He raised his hand. "It's all right, Miss Pearl, it's all right." Then he stood up, straightened his tie, and he said something I will never forget. "Miss Pearl, I need to ask you a favor, a big one." "Yes, sir?" "I need you to stay here with the children when they come home from school. I need you to give them dinner. I need you to put them to bed if I'm not back yet. Can you do that?" "Of course, sir, but where are you going?" He looked at me, and in his eyes I saw something I had never seen before. It wasn't anger, it wasn't sadness, it was determination. "To book club," he said. "I'm going to book club." He left, got into his car and drove away, and I just stood there in that big empty house, wondering what I had just done. Did I do the right thing? Did I just destroy a family? Did I just ruin a marriage? Or was the marriage already ruined and I just finally stopped pretending I didn't see it? I cleaned. That's what I do when I'm nervous. I clean. I scrubbed that kitchen until it sparkled. I dusted every surface in the living room. I vacuumed floors that were already clean. At 3:15 p.m., the kids came home. Madison first, dropped off by a friend's mom. Christopher 10 minutes later, from the school bus. "Hi, Miss Pearl," they shouted like always. Sweet kids. Innocent kids. "Hi, my loves," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Are you hungry? I made cookies." We sat at the kitchen table and they told me about their day. Madison got a 10 on her Portuguese test. Christopher scored a goal at soccer practice. Normal things. Beautiful, normal things. And all I could think was, do you know? Do you know that right now your whole world might be falling apart? 4:30 p.m. No Mrs. Anderson. No Mr. Anderson. 5 p.m. Still nothing. 5:30. The time Mrs. Anderson usually came home from book club. Nothing. The kids started asking questions. "Where's Mom?" Madison asked. "She's running late, sweetheart. She'll be home soon." "Where's Dad? He never comes home early like this." "He had to take care of something. Don't worry." 6 p.m. I made dinner. Spaghetti and meatballs, their favorite. We ate at the kitchen table, the three of us, in that big house that suddenly felt far too quiet. 6:45, still nothing. I washed the dishes, helped Christopher with his homework, listened to Madison practice piano. Normal things, but nothing felt normal. 7:30 p.m. My phone rang. It was Mr. Anderson. "Miss Pearl?" he said. His voice sounded strange, empty, like he was calling from far away. "Yes, sir? I need you to stay with the kids tonight. Can you do that?" "Of course, sir, but is everything all right? Where are you?" "I'm at the Riverside Inn," he said quietly. "And you were right, Miss Pearl. You were right about everything." My heart sank. "Sir, I'm so sorry. I truly am." "Don't be," he said, and his voice was stronger now. "You told me the truth. That's more than anyone else has done in a long time." "Is Mrs. Anderson?" "She's here. She's with him." "I walked into that hotel, Miss Pearl. I told the woman at the front desk I was Mr. Anderson and needed a key to my wife's room. They gave it to me. Room 314. I knew the room number because I saw it on the credit card statement. I stood outside that door for 5 minutes. Just stood there, holding that key card in my hand, listening to sounds I'll never forget. Laughter, music, the sound of my wife's voice saying things I've never heard her say. Not to me. Not in 15 years of marriage. I didn't know what to say. "What do you say to that?" "I'm sorry, sir," was all I could manage. "I opened the door," he continued, like he needed to tell someone, like he needed to say it out loud to make it real. I opened the door, and there she was, my wife, in a hotel room with him. "Who is he, sir?" "Here's the best part, Miss Pearl. Want to guess? Want to guess who my wife has been sleeping with for God knows how long?" I couldn't guess. I didn't want to guess. "His name is Marcus Peterson. Does that name mean anything to you?" I thought for a moment. Peterson. And then it hit me, like a punch to the stomach. "Sir, not the Marcus Peterson who—" "Yes, that Marcus Peterson, my business partner, my best friend since college, the man who was the best man at our wedding, the man who is godfather to our children." Long pause, letting the weight of the betrayal settle. "He's not just sleeping with my wife, Miss Pearl. He's been stealing from our company for years, hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions. I didn't know until today. When I confronted them at the hotel, Victoria," she laughed. She actually laughed. She said she was going to leave me anyway, that she and Marcus had been planning this for 2 years. They were going to take the money and disappear, start a new life in the Cayman Islands. But they made a mistake. They got comfortable, careless, and today I caught them. I called my lawyer from the hotel parking lot. I called the police. I called the FBI. Turns out bank fraud is a federal crime. Marcus is being arrested as we speak. Victoria is going to prison, Miss Pearl, for a long time. And me? I'm going home to my kids, and I'm going to figure out how to tell them their mother is a criminal and their lives are about to change forever. I couldn't speak. Tears were running down my face. "Miss Pearl," he said softly, "thank you. Thank you for telling me the truth. If you hadn't said something today, they would have disappeared next week. With everything. With my money, my company, my life. And I never would have known where they went. Sir, stay with my children tonight, please. I'll be home in an hour. And Miss Pearl?" "Yes, sir?" "You're not invisible. You never were." That was 6 months ago. Mrs. Victoria Anderson is currently in federal prison, awaiting trial. They found evidence of fraud, money laundering, conspiracy. She's looking at 10 to 15 years. Marcus Peterson is in the cell right next to hers. Mr. Anderson? He kept the house. He kept the company, rebuilt it with new partners. He kept his children, who are doing better than anyone expected. They're in therapy, all 3 of them, working through it together. And me? I still work for the Andersons, 3 days a week, just like always. But now, when I walk into that house, Mr. Anderson looks me in the eyes and says, "Good morning, Miss Pearl. Thank you for being here." And I know he means it. People ask me sometimes. They ask, "Miss Pearl, don't you feel guilty? Don't you feel like you destroyed that family?" And I tell them the truth. I didn't destroy that family. Mrs. Anderson destroyed that family. Marcus Peterson destroyed that family. I just stopped being invisible long enough to tell the truth. For 40 years, I've cleaned other people's houses. I've seen their secrets, heard their lies, watched their lives fall apart and come back together. And I've learned something important. Sometimes being kind means staying quiet. But sometimes being kind means speaking up. Even when you're just the maid. Even when they think you're invisible. Even when they forget you're in the room. Because we see everything, my dear. We see everything. Long pause. And sometimes, someone has to say something. Soft tone closing. Now your tea is getting cold, sweetheart. Drink it. And if you have secrets in your house, well, just remember. The maid is always watching. Final screen. Based on observations from 40 years working as a housekeeper, names and details have been changed.